Well, hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, wherever you may be watching this, whether it be live or whether it be on replay. Welcome to the BCV broadcast. I am your host, Pastor SaikoWoods, and I am delighted to have you here. I'm waiting for a few people to come on in. I know since I put this announcement out, all of you have been waiting and have been anxiously anticipating to join in on this discussion. And so let me just make sure that all my settings are good to go here. And that way we'll be able to have everybody in the house and in the building here. All right. Facebook fam, hello, 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 hello. YouTube family. All right. Good to see everybody here. Okay. So this is a special broadcast, a very special broadcast that I am doing here live. As you know, normally during the week, I work. I'm a truck driver, but I'm most importantly a Christian, a blood-bought, born-again believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. And so my desire is for the body of Christ and for God's people to be informed and for our neighbors also. We love our neighbors as ourselves. And so anytime I'm coming on alive in the middle of the day, either I'm on vacation or there's something that needs to be said. Somebody said, switch my mic. Charles, you can't hear me? Can everybody hear me okay? Because my mic is good. I got my sound and everything is good. So check the volume on your mic, louder than normal and a slight echo. All right, let me see if I can do this. I want to make sure that everybody is good. All right. So can everybody hear me okay? You said the mic sounds like it's a little off. I hope not. On camera mic, and not for sure. Yeah, the only thing is, Charles, the on camera mic is definitely different. It's definitely different. So let me make sure that I can get my settings okay. And maybe because I was too close to the mic, so I'll make sure that I'm not as close as I don't need to be. So, but anyway, hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I just want to make sure that, I'm not on the webcam at all. I'm not on the webcam at all. You see, y'all can see somebody said we can hear you, but it sounds like cell phone audio instead of mic audio. Yeah, the mic. I have my mic and everything hooked up. I mean, my sure mic is on. I don't have any issues. Let me make sure, because I already looked at my settings and my mic settings are already good. So let me make sure. My mic settings are good. I looked at my audio. Yeah, my mic is good. I'm looking at my mic right here. Again. What about now? Let me see if that's okay. How about now, ladies and gentlemen? I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Because this is just like the enemy. The enemy will try to use whatever. Okay, so this is better. Okay, this is better. Okay, great. Okay, so everybody can hear me. Okay, thank God. Whew, thank you, Lord. All right. Okay, but I got to make sure that my brother Charles hears me. Charles, can you hear me, sir? Charles, can you hear me? I changed. Well, I have two settings. I have two sure settings. One is with my wife, and the other one was mine. And so I guess the audio got switched. Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Thank you all. So real quick, because I don't want to waste too much time, I have Dr. Christina Parks waiting in the green room, and what I want to do is just real quick, just share with you why I'm doing this, and then bring my special guest on. Number one, I'm doing this because I love the body of Christ, and because I love the truth, and because this information needs to be brought out and disseminated as much as possible. Also, for me, this is a sacrifice of love. Anytime that I do these things, especially when I'm supposed to be working, I decided to take the day off without pay because of my love for the body of Christ. And I put out the appeal earlier this week for those of you who would like to support this ministry. I'm not sure if this will be my last video, but if it is, then I'd rather it be my last video because I'm speaking the truth. But if you would like to support this ministry financially by doing so and to help support what I'm doing, you can do so by hitting the links here at PayPal or Cash App, SaikoWoods@yahoo.com, or Cash App $SaikoWoods is right there. You can also keep it on your screen or try to save it for later time. But that's how you can support what I'm doing and as an act of love and appreciation for this ministry. But listen, without any further ado, I can discuss some other things later on. I want to bring my guest on. Some of you have saw her video that when she was speaking with the Michigan legislature, and her video has gone viral. By God's grace, I was able to connect with her through a mutual friend and sister in the Lord. And so she decided to take time out of her busy schedule to come live and to speak with us about issues affecting people in general. But also, most importantly, the body of Christ and also the Black community as well. So without any further ado, let me welcome my guest, Dr. Christina Parks. Thank you so much, ma'am. Welcome to the broadcast. Welcome to the live. How are you doing this morning?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, sister. Thank you so much, Dr. Parks, for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I don't want to take too much of your time. I want to be respectful of your time because I know you're busier than a Hebrew slave. So, so I want to let people.
Yeah, when they get rid of that straw, it makes making the bricks a lot harder.
That's right. So I want people to let people know a little bit about yourself. Give people your credentials and who you are, what you do, what is your profession, and what brought you here. So let's just go ahead and get started. Let's tell people about yourself, Dr. Parks. Go right ahead.
So I got a PhD in 1999 from the University of Michigan in cellular and molecular biology. My field of study was actually cytokine signaling, which is how the immune system signals. And so I knew a little bit. I'm not an immunologist, but I've learned a lot about it since. But I understand the signaling of how some of that works. And as I finished my degree, I decided I actually worked at putting some tutoring programs and a health sciences pipeline in the Ypsilanti public schools, and done quite a bit of tutoring with the Ann Arbor public schools, looking at racial disparities. And I decided that what we teach our young people is really so important, that I really didn't have the personality to spend all day pipetting. And I also wanted to have a family. So I made the decision at that time to become an educator. And I love educating. I love working with kids. So I actually worked locally in my own public school district for about 5 or 6 years. And then I came home we adopted 2 children from Ethiopia. And I came home to take care of my kids, to homeschool. So I'm a homeschool mom. My son just went off to college. He's in his 2nd year, and he's in New York City, which is basically banning, people from going to restaurants or going to places if you're not vaccinated. So it's a very relevant issue to me. And at that time, I had some reservations about, different submuscular injectable biologics, SBIs.
And let me interject real quick. That term, Dr. Parks and I, that we just used and coined, I want you all to shout out this sister right here, April Chapman. Say hello to my sister, April Chapman, Dr. Parks.
Hello, April.
She's the individual.
Thank you for giving us that tongue twister, but I'll just be saying SBIs.
Yes, that's right. SIBs. That's right.
SIBs. Sorry.
Yeah, SIBs. We'll call them. That's right.
Injectable biologics.
You're gonna call them the SIBs. That's what it's now called from now on. Y'all need to get that in your cranium. You understand what I'm saying? So but go right ahead, Dr. Parks.
And so I had some questions because some of the things that I was seeing wasn't quite following the science. And then, as I taught, I was seeing more and more of these SIBs in very young children that, below the age of 2. And it just didn't make any sense because the immune system isn't developed. Again, it just wasn't matching with the science that I knew. And so, and the number, the frequency, it was concerning to me. And then several years ago, I realized that PubMed, which is a library of it's like a scientific database where you can link up to different scientific papers, was online. And that allowed me to take a deep dive into the primary literature, which I did, and became more and more concerned with both the schedule and some of the ingredients and many other things, as well as the history. And so I've been, studying it night and day since then. So I have thousands of hours of study in the primary literature in this field. And also, within the last year, I've probably been doing 20 hours a week just with stuff related to what's going on, the science of everything that's going on. So it's definitely, that's where I'm coming from.
And Dr. Parks, I just discovered that you are a believer. You're a born again believer. Can you tell a little bit about your conversion and how you came to Christ?
Sure. I grew up in the church with my family, and I gave my heart to the Lord in one of those little clubs, good news clubs.
Yeah. Oh, good news clubs. You went to one of those? Oh man.
Probably I was in maybe 4th or 5th grade.
And wow.
So I remember that. But as I got older, and as we know, sometimes when you go to school, your faith I kind of moved away from it. It's not that I didn't believe, it's just that I didn't have the conviction of my beliefs. And I ended up getting a lot into New Age. And I spent many years reading many, many New Age things. So I'm very, very familiar with that philosophy. And in the end, I felt like I was an intellectual dog chasing its intellectual tail and getting nowhere. And there was a frustration. And then the scripture that I had been taught, came back. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me. And that was like a lifeline instead of an exclusionary statement, that I could trust Jesus, that he would not lead me astray, that I didn't have to intellectually figure it out because he's much smarter than I am.
Amen.
And I could trust him. And then the other question that kept coming up was, who do you say that I am? Am I the Son of God? Or am I some, manufactured intellectual being that, differs from philosophy to philosophy? And so when I answered those questions, I really came back in strength and conviction. And then the next thing was just to really get into the Word, which I chose to do at that time.
Okay. So now, Dr. Parks, let me just go ahead and ask you some of these questions. And I'm just going off the list of some of these right now randomly. One person asked a question. They said, well, why are you doing this? What brings you to basically come out to speak in this way? And how has it affected your family and you as well?
Well, I've been eyeball deep in this for several years. And until the current crisis, the pandemic, many people didn't want to hear that there was something askew, something very, very wrong that was going on. I do not have I don't have any skin in this game. I do not have a child that's injured by that or anything such. Again, I just kept seeing things that didn't make sense. But what really brought me to it is the suffering of these children, of the families involved. And now the suffering is just blown up into so many different ways that people are suffering from what's going on. And so the suffering is what, and the bullying that moms with injured children, that were not being believed, that were gaslighted, that were told there's no plausible mechanism, when I'd always seen plausible mechanism. And when I took a deep dive, I saw scores, hundreds of scientific papers that supported plausible mechanism for injury. And so I said, I can't let children continue to be injured. And now I can't let, people be injured, and they need informed consent. If you want to make a specific decision, that's your right, but you need to be informed about the science of what is actually taking place.
Wow. Now, of course, I know when you had spoke before the legislative committee in Michigan, how was you able to speak before that panel, and what was the thing that precipitated that discussion?
Well, I've been very involved in informed choice in Michigan for quite some time. And so I think there were people that knew, and we had told the legislature that several of us were available for testimony. And so we were just looking for a representative to come forward and take advantage of that. And Sue Aller chose to do that. She actually was sponsoring this bill several years before. So this wasn't new, in response to SIBs for the flu and for DTaP. And with regards to especially medical workers, getting them for work, and that these did not prevent transmission. And so this was not new. It's just that the pandemic sort of added a whole new component that was much more critical to that. And so because those, even though I don't think anyone should be forced to do it, at least have much more of a proven safety record and being FDA approved and things like that. So.
Okay. So now I remember you mentioned about something in your testimony about PhDs basically they're more hesitant on taking the SIB than others. Could you unpack that and why is that the case?
Sure. And I'll say I might have to put my dog out in a minute. He's woken up from his nap.
Okay,
and he's a little bit cranky, but we'll see.
Live.
Yeah, I'm going to take him out. And so I'll be just a second. Let me take him out and maybe you can talk about a couple of things while I'm gone.
Yep. I can do that. So what I want to do, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and do this. Let's hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button. Let people know that we are live with Dr. Christina Parks. She has taken time out of her very, very busy schedule to talk to us about this issue that has affected millions of lives worldwide. And so I want us to do that. Let's share our support. Again, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button on my channel. Also share and tag some people, tag a friend, even tag an enemy. Doesn't matter. Maybe they can get enlightened with some truth. So, but Dr. Christina Parks is back. Go right ahead, ma'am.
All right. What was the question now?
So the question was, what was the question? I think you already answered it. And if not, I'll have somebody already make the question in the chat. So let me go to some other questions. So explain your statement. One of the statements that you made in the before the legislature, you mentioned the Tuskegee experiment and Black people and their hesitancy of receiving the SIB. What is the correlation to that, and why? And matter of fact, there's somebody said, why don't PhDs take the vaccine? So that's what it was.
Right.
Why are you hesitant? Thank you, right. Talia. Thank you, Lisa.
So yeah, that gets to the question: why are various groups hesitant? PhDs are hesitant because we know that this is an extremely complex science that's been oversimplified in the media. People have this really magic bullet idea of what these biologics do. And they're not magic bullets. They're complex science with complex unintended consequences. And, when I was in graduate school, people would post this little thing on their door of their laboratory that would say, if we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be called research.
Wow.
And so we kind of laugh at that. People think that there's some big answer in the sky, that somebody knows it and has all the problems solved. And that's just not true. There are wonderful advancements in medicine. My daughter has seizures and she's on seizure medicine, and I'm so grateful for that. Mm-hmm. But even that has unintended consequences at times, and there's got to be a cost-benefit analysis. Right. And there are also other technologies. This is not the only answer, right? And so instead of looking at it as a magic bullet, we see it as very complex science with possible unintended consequences. Because even when I was in graduate school, we hadn't cloned all the receptors for the signaling of the whole immune system. There's so much we didn't know and so much we still don't know. And so to think that all of the things that something's going to do is hubris, it's arrogance. And so that's why PhDs are hesitant. African Americans are hesitant because they're one of actually several marginalized groups that have basically been experimented on. Stanley Plotkin in the Plotkin deposition actually went on record and explained how many different special needs populations and other populations were actually experimented on using these biologics. And African Americans have been one such group. There was an incident in Africa. Basically, scientists have been developing biologics that are effective at birth control. Now, if that was something you wanted, that would be one thing, informed consent. But there was a mass campaign in Africa in which millions were basically given this under the assumption that it was just a routine tetanus campaign.
Wow.
And in fact, the tetanus toxin was conjugated to human chorionic gonadotropin, which is the pregnancy hormone, having the effect that if you got this, your body would make antibodies to that hormone and you would not be able to sustain a pregnancy. Right? They were not informed. Obviously, in Africa, most of them, almost all of them were African.
Mm.
And it took some Catholic charities to actually take samples and have them analyzed. And half of the samples showed that they had the human chorionic gonadotropin in it. And you can see the science of them making these biologics, which is fine. It's just that not having informed consent and giving them is the problem. And so we know it's possible, and it looks like that's what was done. And so I'm not going to say, it needs to be something that's investigated, brought to court or whatever, but it never has been. So this tells you what can be done. And, they're saying in Japan, a bunch of vials were recalled and things like this. And so that begs the question, how do we even know if what's being injected into us is what we think it is?
Right.
And so I think that, when you're talking about forcing something, it's very problematic. And so, of course, that's why African Americans are and should be questioning. And the other thing that really is concerning to me is we live in an age where we have the information, the genetic code, the epigenetics, to base our medical care on unique, to make it very unique and to that person. I'm learning more and more about how people of African descent have specific genetic differences and epigenetic differences that allowed them to adapt to the environment that they were in and be successful in it. However, they make them more sensitive to things like RNA viruses, like the one that's going around, as well as to certain biologics that induce an immune response that's very different than one that is seen in their European counterparts. And so this is a science. We also know that they have mutations that are protective from malaria that make it more likely that upon such a stressor, such as a biologic or even a virus itself, that they could go into something called crisis where their red blood cells blow up. This is something that doctors should be screening for, should be addressing, should have blood transfusions right and ready for these patients, and should be monitoring those as high risk going in, knowing that this is a potentiality for that patient. So this individualized medicine that we need to have is being ignored in lieu of a political narrative that if we're just nicer to people, that's the way to treat. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't be nicer to people. That's a wonderful thing. But I want the hard science. When you're treating me, I want you to be doing these tests and individualizing your medicine for me instead of this one size fits all that's going on.
Man, okay. So you said a lot, and now I want you to bring the cookies down from the top shelf, so all of us can get a bite of this one that I'm about to ask you, Doctor. What's the difference between an MD and a PhD? I'm just throwing it out there.
There's a huge difference. In fact, when I was in graduate school, I helped tutor and teach MDs the cellular and molecular biology. And by and large, they are not familiar with how these biologics are developed and how that technology works. They basically are told, and they trust their colleagues, right? We tend to say, hey, you're an expert in your field, I'm an expert in mine. I'm assuming I don't want people to question me. This is what I know. And so MDs really treat patients and they look at things on a bigger global scale. They don't get into the nitty gritty of what's happening in the cell. And so there's many times when they may not see mechanism because they haven't studied things at that level. Now, there are probably some MDs that got an undergrad degree in cellular or molecular biology, but maybe not that many, maybe more as time goes on because it might be a more popular degree. But it's a very, I'm looking at what's actually happening in the cell. What are these little things that are going into your body? What is that and what does it do? And I understand that at the very deep level. They do not. They're trusting their colleagues. They're saying, hey, I know I wouldn't do anything bad, or I would, make sure it was safe. So if they say it's safe, I'm sure it is. And very few really understand the technology. I actually think that now to be an MD, because so many of our drugs are targeted at this level, that pretty much they should all have this training in biochemistry and molecular biology as an undergrad.
Wow. So here's my next question for you, Doctor. How do you view the media's coverage of the big C and the SIB. How you think the media is doing with this?
I can't even watch it because it's so upsetting to me. The only word that comes to mind is LIE, lie, and we know who the father of lies is.
Yes.
I think many people are lying unintentionally, believing those in authority. And so it goes to those in authority that are lying and deceiving intentionally, and they know they're doing it. I'm not sure what the rationale or the reason is. A cover up of their own mistakes or unintentional blunders or whatever it is. But they're basically completely misleading the public.
So when we hear the big name peoples, like I'll just give an initial. You can probably know who I'm talking about. Starts with an F,
Yep.
ends with an I. It rhymes with lie. But when you see people like him giving information that 6 months ago or maybe a year ago is totally different than what we're hearing today. Like, for instance, the cloth mask.
Mm-hmm.
1 minute he says no need to have it. Now all of a sudden it's necessary and even mandated in certain municipalities and states and in jurisdictions. So what is your thoughts about that? Why such a push for people's behavior to be changed and their mindset?
I don't know if I can really speak to his his intentions or what he's thinking. I can just speak to the science. He said early that it doesn't, and that is based on the science. So sometimes if you listen to him, he does couch his statements very carefully so that technically he's not lying, but he is misleading because the layperson isn't seeing the qualifications that he's given. So sometimes he speaks scientifically and says something that's true. Other times he says, well, just common sense would tell us. I don't, didn't we just say we're going to follow the science? I don't care what common sense says a mask would work.
Right.
No, I want to see the scientific studies to back it up. So I can't speak to the rationale behind it, but I can speak to, it's just mind boggling. Basically this could have all been shut down last summer by a medication that's FDA approved for safety, has been used for 70 years, was thrown around third world countries, including Africa, like candy to prevent malaria. And we know that it's very safe. We have a track record of how to use it. Children use it for lupus, and it also helps prevent, it prevents transmission. That could have been used, and Fauci knew that. Oh, sorry, I wasn't.
No, don't worry about it. Go ahead.
He knew that, and yet that is where he did very much mislead and lie, and it has cost how many lives since? So that could have been shut down. And so, is this a push for manufacturers to make more money? Is it a global takeover? I don't know. I'm just a scientist telling you that we are not following the science. I was literally sick to my stomach all last summer because when I found out about that medication, which I found out about it in January, because I was following what was happening in China and trying to see what was going on. And I did a deep dive into that medication. I was blown away by how good the science is. And here's the thing. What they know about this particular medication is it can be used for metabolic syndrome that is rife in the African American community and actually predisposes us to more severe illness when this virus comes along. And so it can be used to mitigate symptoms of hypertension, and it can be used, and they have the mechanism, they have molecule by molecule how this works. That's what I studied. And so that's what I was like, wow, we have molecule by molecule how this works to reverse things like hypertension and diabetes and metabolic syndrome, all of which are risk factors. And yet we're told we can't pre-treat with it and we can't treat with it at all. So this is being used as a treatment for diabetes in third world countries already. And now we're told it's not safe. We're told it's not effective. There are now, I believe, about 341 studies, most of them done in other countries, that show 75% effectiveness when used early. Yes. That data has been completely censored. And so we had some preliminary studies that were very solid out even, at the beginning of the summer. And to see them shut that down made me physically ill because anyone who spoke out about it, of course, was completely censored.
Right. And I was going to ask you this: what makes it? How are you able to move about in these social media streets in light of the video that became viral, and you're speaking out even today? How would you, I guess, help those of us who are trying to put this information out and to do it with such stealth and wisdom? But what would be some practical things you think that we can do to try to help our people? And when I say our people, I'm not trying to be some black nationalist and nothing like that. But as you mentioned, the data shows that this thing has disproportionately affected the black community in such a way that I believe it's just me from what I've observed, Doctor. I believe that there is an attack against the black community. And I want to show you something on the screen, and I want to just follow the flow of my logic with this. I'm going to show you something on the screen, and this is something that I was able to pull up, and this is a tweet, and this is from a doctor. Do you see this? PhD, Dr. Mary K. Anstruther, and she says, quote, this is dated July 31st of this year. Quote, I'm going to read it out loud in case of those who may be listening and can't watch the screen. Quote, this woman says, I want to get the black community fully vaccinated. It's time for KFC, Popeyes, and Church's Chicken to step up to the plate and offer pop-up vaccine clinics at their restaurants. Assign a trusted employee to administer them. We need to get this virus back under control. End of quote. Now, she hasn't been censored.
Maybe they could just at every park have fried chicken and watermelon, and then we'd all come running.
Don't forget the red Kool-Aid now. Don't forget the red Kool-Aid.
That is racist at all. Like, I mean, before we even get to the science part of it, I'm like, wow.
Like, but that stays up. That hasn't been flagged.
Well, that is consistent with their narrative. And so I've been involved in, speaking out all year. I had no idea that video was going to go viral because I've made many such similar speeches. And I think the African-American component is one reason that it did, because over 70% of our community has decided that this is not something that they want. And in an environment where everyone's saying, oh, we're trying to help the black community, it's like a complete opposite narrative. And so I think that's one of the aspects that helped it go viral. But sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second.
No, it's okay. We're talking about the tweet.
Yeah.
And how racist it is and stuff like that. Yeah.
So, as far as social media. So, and when I would speak out, many times I would speak out at the Capitol, and I'm sharing the science. I'll, if you walk up to me at Walmart, I'll share the science with you. That's just what I do. So anybody that asks me to share the science anywhere, I'll go and do, most likely. And so I ended up, because anybody who posted my speeches or my presentations got their account deleted.
Wow.
So I never posted my own. And I just let them post it, get their account deleted. And eventually I was hemorrhaging friends like you wouldn't believe. There were many patriot groups that have been skeptical of this and have asked me to speak. And like I said, I'll go. I initially made some contacts in the Black church, but that sort of fell through. And so this is one of the first opportunities I really had to engage the Black community that I really have wanted to do for many years, because it wasn't just an issue with this particular SIV, but with many of the others. And I think that while many conservatives, there seems to be differences in ideas, have been a little more leery of this than people on the other side of the political spectrum. I want to reach everyone with the truth, because the truth is what sets us free and makes us realize that we're not each other's enemies, as the mainstream media would want us to believe. That once we can all agree on what's true, and that's where the lies and the narratives are so problematic. So with that said, although I'm still on Facebook so that people can message me and still get in contact with me for information, And then probably today I'll put a Telegram link. So I had to move to Telegram because we couldn't post anything.
Right.
But people do not understand how bad the censorship was. Somebody posted a live that they did with me. The next day their account is gone. And, we would joke about it. And also there's a group called Michigan for SIB Choice. And that believes that parents and people should be able to make an informed choice themselves. And if you try to put them in, you can put exactly that name in. It'll come up 5 pages down. And the first thing that will come up is the CDC. And so the amount of censorship was actually just unbelievable. People having their YouTube accounts deleted. In fact, it was a homeschool mom that clipped and posted my testimony, and I just forwarded that on. And because she was a nobody, they didn't catch it right away.
Right.
And that kind of allowed it to slip through. But then several days later, because she was very busy, she posted some of the other testimonies. They were taken down within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if they delete her account whatsoever. And so, and many people know this, so they'll record and re-upload and all kinds of other things you have to do to get around the censorship. But that's the kind of censorship we're talking about. Yep. And then they'll market, someone just shared a hit piece on me saying that everything I said isn't true about one aspect of my testimony, but providing no substantiating resources. So on my Facebook page, I put a full list of, not a full list of reference, but a partial list of references, and I put it on my Telegram page. So right now I had to move to Telegram. That's where I post most of my science and resources for people to have access to.
And I would encourage all of you who are watching this live right now to make sure before this day is over and after this live is done that you go to Dr. Christina Parks's Telegram account and you subscribe, you follow her, because the information that she has on there is par excellence. And I'm not a fool to believe that this video that we're doing now is going to probably be taken down, but this is why I make sure that I keep my receipts as well too. But I believe that people need to hear the truth in real time. And what you're doing, Dr. Parks, we have to continue to keep pressing forward. I'm encouraged for the simple fact is that you're not the only one. I'm not the only one. What we want to do is continue to encourage people to use whatever God-given platforms or whatever stewardships that God has given to us to make sure we put the word out. And yes, we may have to just use coded language like we just did today with the SIB. Now everybody should be getting that in their mind on how they can use that term to get more information out. So I want to ask you a couple more questions, and I want to take too much more of your time, Doctor. So one other question was, what are the components or the ingredients that's in the SIB? Are you familiar? I'm pretty sure you are, but have you been
familiar? Yeah.
So if you can tell us what are some of the ingredients and components that are in the jab, and actually I took some screenshots of it, and you can tell me if what I have on here is exactly what's in the SIB. So I'm going to populate it and let you look at it, and you tell me if these things are true. Go right ahead.
I'm not familiar with that last one.
Okay.
And the second one, I think, might be in the Johnson & Johnson. I'm not sure about the Pfizer and Moderna. The first one, I would say it's unlikely, but it could be in. So if those are in, you can go ahead and take it down.
Sure.
If those are in, they're probably going to be, I think the beta-propionolactate is a stabilizing agent. Those aren't what I'm worried about.
Go right ahead and tell what you have.
So those aren't, they may or may not be in there in very small amounts. I think the second one is in some of them, for sure. But they're not what I'm worried about. They're not what makes this toxic.
Okay.
They are in some of the previous SIBs, and some of the ingredients, such as aluminum, are what makes those toxic, right? It varies with each SIB what the issue of toxicity is. And it's very complex science, and that's why I'm trying to break it down for people so they can make an informed choice. The problem with these is what they do. The most toxic element of this is the spike protein. And let me explain. What
Please.
these are little virus-like particles. They're synthetically made particles that are basically virus-like, both the Pfizer, Moderna, and the J&J. And so what they do, they don't cause an infection. I'm not even saying that. So let's be clear. They don't cause an infection, but what that allows it to do is sort of get this nucleic acid, which is kind of one and one, it is actually DNA, and the other two, it's mRNA, into your cells. What that is that's a template. That's instructions for making the spike protein. The reason that's problematic is the spike protein is what causes the manifestation of most of the deleterious problems with infection. So it's what's causing the problem. So if it's what's causing all your symptoms when you get sick, why in the world would you want your body to make billions of copies of it? Okay, so the rationale is that usually what you would do in one of these, in a kind of old school one, is you'd inject just a little bit of that protein and your body would make antibodies to it so that when it saw the actual virus, it would attack it and neutralize it. So this kind of goes under the same philosophy, but what it's doing is it's having your own body make that protein with the idea that you'll make antibodies that attack and neutralize it. But it doesn't just make a little bit, it makes billions of copies, and this mRNA is stabilized so that it keeps making it and making it and making it. This protein is associated with strokes, huge embolytic events. And what I mean by that, we're not talking about one little clot, we're talking about massive clotting all through that organ or through the body. And if you have something like leaky gut, if you have if you just had dental work, there are several predisposing factors that can predispose you to having this massive clotting event. There are other things like thrombocytopenia, heart damage, myocarditis. It's being seen especially in our young boys of like 18, 19, 20 years old. And so it's because this spike protein is toxic, and the toxicity is what's causing the illness with the virus. So why would you want to mimic that?
Right.
So that's my issue with these. It's not what's in them, it's what they do in your body. They're basically hijacking your cells to make this toxic protein. I think that model of a biologic is extremely problematic because it can actually affect your gene expression. It can affect many, many different things about how your body works and have many unintended consequences.
Let me ask another question. What do you say to people, to those especially, what do you say to people who've taken the SIB because their doctor told them it was safe and they've done their research, quote unquote, and trust them? And some of these people have given, this SIB to their children. Some of these people were pregnant when they taken it. What would be your thoughts, or what are your thoughts or advice to these people who say that they've done their research? And I know from personal conversations with people, Dr. Parks, I've had conversations with people who said, they've done their research, they've just trusted God to just, to take it, whatever the case might be, whatever the reasons or logic is. But based on you being a scientist and you being and have done in-depth research, what are your thoughts to people who made that statement, whose doctors have given them this SIB?
Well, I think it's really unfortunate that there's a narrative that doesn't encourage people to understand the decision that they've made. They think that they've done it based on what their doctor said or the CDC. They went to the CDC website. That's what they consider the research. So unfortunately, many people didn't understand all of the relevant issues. And as I said, the science is very complex. And so it's hard for the layperson to even understand what's going on, let alone, really that they did the research to find that information. So, and I would say, I guess it just depends. Some people, if they're happy with that decision, I'm for informed choice. So if that's a decision that you're comfortable with,
right.
But I don't think, there are over 13,000 reported deaths in the US from these. 13,000. The most that they've ever seen yearly is 50.
And correct me if I'm wrong.
And when do you see that on the news?
Right, that's what I was going to ask you. And isn't it true when is it the CDC or FDA? Which I'm not sure which agency. When there's a high amount of deaths, I think 40 or 50, they're supposed to stop.
Right.
Which agency is that?
Then now it's coming out that the advisory boards that are supposed to monitor this and say, hey, stop, that they don't exist. Like, I mean, for this particular biologic. So what in the world is happening? Are we having some sort of a takeover? Like, how does this, and that's what many of us who are scientists are asking, how does this happen in the United States of America, that there's a complete breakdown of the safety structure? And many people just assume that all of those things are still in place to protect them. And so that's what I would say. I would say that you're functioning on the assumption that our system is working how it's supposed to work, and it's not. It is completely broken down. And I don't know if it's because pharma has sort of stepped in and taken over using all of their money. What many people don't realize is that in 1986, the pharmaceutical companies came to Congress and said, hey, we're getting our butts sued off. And if we're going to make these to protect people or whatever, we need full indemnification. We want no liability for our product. And Congress folded and said, okay, we trust that you're always going to have our best interest at mind and that you're going to make a completely safe product. And so you cannot sue for any of these that are on the childhood schedule. So that's really scary, because that's going to be their next move. They're going to push right from an emergency authorization to pushing this onto the childhood schedule, because it allows them to have no liability.
Right?
The emergency authorization, no liability, the childhood schedule. So if you got one of these and something does happen, it could have happened immediately. In fact, 86% of those deaths occurred within 1 week of getting it. That's causal, right? There's going to be a percentage of those that are absolutely causal. So, those people are going to have no recourse because there's no liability. Now people are being mandated to get it for work, and there's still no liability. I want to be very clear about this, because many people are facing this situation. There was just an FDA approval, but do you know what was approved? Something that's on a piece of paper in somebody's computer. It's not actually a real product. It's something that they're going to produce when they get around to it.
Wow.
All right, so that's approved. It's not available. What's available? What's available is still under the emergency authorization. Why? Because they're not liable for that. If they FDA approved that, which they could have done, they would immediately become liable. And if you got it, then you could sue. As it is, it's still under an emergency use authorization, and you can't sue. And I imagine that they will conveniently not get that other product on until it's on the childhood schedule, and they still have no liability. Right. So why would you want to take the risk of disability or other things that may happen? And this is clearly one of the least safe products that has come along. I mean, there's nothing even that's even in the same category, just nothing.
Right. Somebody had asked the question at the part, and I'm pretty sure you've heard it before. For those who have taken it, what's the recourse? What can they do? What can people do who have taken it and now they've regretted taking it because of peer pressure or whatever? They were just uninformed, possibly. What are some remedies, or what can they do now, maybe going forward, to help themselves and to help others as well?
Right. Well, first, unfortunately, what I do want to say is that if you haven't gotten this and you're being pressured from work, many people have tried to detox from these types of biologics in the past. And there are many ways to do that. This is so different in the technology that many of those methods are not going to work. And so don't think that you can get this on the back end, right? However, I always, I'm a daughter of the Most High. I believe that God works in our lives. So prayer would be the first step. God is a God of healing.
Yes.
Try to maintain a positive attitude because your immune system, and your whole body is responsive to that. And you want to be anti-inflammatory. So what that means is you don't want a lot of sugar in your diet. And so if you are someone that's very health conscious, you want to do things that help to reduce your inflammation, reduce, things like your diabetes and your hypertension, those sorts of things. On my website, I do have some specific presentations. There's quite a bit of science that goes along with this. One other thing that is very important, if you do not believe that you've been exposed to the virus and you have then gotten the biologics, you may be particularly susceptible to coming down with this. So do not assume you actually are protected. And so what you want to do is actually contact like the frontline doctors and get a prescription for prophylactic, or just to have some, you can talk with them about that, and the reason I said that, both of these medications, the eye one, was actually, won the Nobel Prize.
Wow.
Won the Nobel Prize because it's broadly antiviral, broadly antibacterial, antifungal, has anti-cancer properties, and is hugely anti-inflammatory. So these medications, one, do help prevent transmission, so they may protect you from getting the virus and mitigate symptoms if you should get it. And so because there's something called antibody-dependent enhancement, which means in some limited number of people, not everybody, having gotten this will actually help the virus into your cells. It's really scary because you'll go from being mildly ill to being on the brink of death within hours and days.
Okay.
And so you want to make sure that you have that ready so that either you're taking it prophylactically before, or on the first symptom, you can make sure that you're treating according to how the doctor told you to. That may be more than one thing.
Right.
So that you don't get into a situation where you're acutely ill. And so this is something they're not telling people that I think is very important, especially as we're headed into, the cold season. I'm going to post later today an interview I did with Maya Hahn that talks about African-American susceptibilities. And so that has some ideas on what you can do there as well. Another one is just make sure your vitamin D sufficient. Like, get to your doctor, make sure your vitamin D sufficient. Make sure that you have some zinc on hand for if you got ill, and talk to your doctor about how to supplement with the zinc. You don't want to take too much, and some things more is not better. So talk to your doctor about how to supplement with zinc, because zinc can help to mitigate the effects of the virus. So, but in terms of detoxing, it's not really possible, but you can support. So anything that you would do to generally support your own health will help your body to sort of purge this out and take care of it. Some people have amazing health and will do that. Other people are kind of right on the cusp and may have problems with it, but you can find more resources on my Telegram page.
Right. Dr. Parks, I don't want to take any more of your time. You've been very gracious with it. Thank you so much. I will definitely be keeping in contact with you going forward. Any other last closing thoughts you want to share before you go?
No, I would just say, be in prayer. Be in prayer. The truth would be made known for you. If this is shocking information for you, be in prayer that God would speak to your heart. I'm about just giving people information, not bullying people one way or the other. So I just think that at such time as this, we really need to call on the Lord to rain down his grace and mercy on this situation.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Parks, and blessings to you and your family. Thank you. I'll tell you, as I said, thank you for allowing me to borrow some of your time. And I will be keeping in contact with you. And I really, really do appreciate this. And on behalf of myself and all those people who are in Facebook land and YouTube land, we definitely thank you for your bravery, for your boldness, and for your stand for the truth in God's name. We thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, you too. God bless. Take care now. Talk to you soon. All right, y'all. Let me really quickly say a couple of things. Number one, thank you so much for those who are in the super chat who have donated, but I'm not sure if you're able to do this. I want to say this now before this video ends. If you are able to reverse your donations, you may want to donate and send your gifts over to either PayPal or Cash App. Here's why. Because I didn't want to interrupt Dr. Park while she was talking. If I get demonetized and get deplatformed, I'm sure that the monies and the gifts that you've sent would not come to me. So I'm not sure if you're able to reverse your donation or to reverse your gifts. If you are able to do that, I'll put the payment option, donation options here on the screen for those of you who are still on the live, and those of you who have given. And if you're able to reverse that, if you're able to take that those gifts and resend it through this way, I'd rather you probably do it there. And those are the two options there. Because again, I'm pretty sure that most likely YouTube is going to probably try to flag this and take it down like they did with Dr. Boyce Watkins. Yes, I do have Zelle too, Nicole, and it's under my my number. And I have no problem putting my number out there. It's 832-513-8003. 832-513-8003. That's the contact number you can use through use through Zelle, Nicole, and I thank you for that. Yeah, and I appreciate again those of you who had supported and who was led to give. I really appreciate that. But if you are able to reverse it and resend it through the other payment options, even through Zelle, you can do that because I just don't trust YouTube at this moment. Because again, I know they're going to try to take this down. If not, we'll do it just shortly after this video has ended. So again, you can resend those gifts if you like to do that through PayPal, SaikoWoods, that's SAIKO, Woods with an S at yahoo.com, or you can send it through Cash App, that is $SaikoWoods, SAIKO, Woods with an S. You can also send it through Zelle, Zelle. That's the Zelle app. You can send it there through my number 832-513-8003. I want to read one last email, and thank you those of you who sent me your questions. Of course, I didn't want to go too long because Dr. Parks was very gracious in allotting some of her time to us today. But I definitely appreciate the questions and some of the questions that you all had asked. And so hopefully you all were able to get these questions presented to her. So I want to read this email. And actually, any other questions I may miss, I can just send it to her. And I'm pretty sure she'll respond back to me. And then I'll just send it to the individuals who actually emailed me and sent me their questions. But this individual emailed me and said this. They said they also donated. They said they donated also through Cash App, and said, I know it's not much. You was right though. We have to support each other in these times. And my job is having issues with all of this C, this capital C. Y'all know what that means. 5 letters, 1 word. With all of this C mess. So it has been affecting my paycheck, but I wanted to contribute to you, especially being you took off from work to do this interview. And I really appreciate what you're doing for your kinsmen according to the flesh and those who are not. He explained where he works and described where he works at. But he said that they are mandating their top executives to get the SIB, which we now know what the SIB is. A submuscular injectable biologic. That's what we're calling it now. And so they've instructed and mandated their executives to get the SIB by October 18th. He asked if I can pray for him when I stand against this, when it rolls downhill on frontline employees. I've currently enrolled in the CDL class. God led me in this direction a couple months back to get ahead of these mandates. And my class actually ends October 17th. He says, look at how God got me ahead of this SIB before my company even announced this for their top tier executives. If you can pray for me to do well on my testing and lead me to a company that will not mandate the SIB, especially if his company doesn't accept his religious exemption that he will put in. He says, thank you, brother, for all you do. Continue to stand boldly. I got one more strike after sharing her video, which is Dr. Parks' video on Facebook, and I'm going to have my page restricted, but we must continue to fight against this wicked agenda, and I will be sharing your live stream regardless if it costs me a week or 30 days, end quote. And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. It is what it is with me. Yeah. Okay. You said withdraw the funds from YouTube immediately. Okay. Super chats are not refundable. And so Charles, I need your assistance in helping me do that, because I have never withdrawn it like that. I've always waited for them to send it every month. So I'll hit you up immediately after this this live is over, and you can instruct me and hopefully walk me through that and getting that done. So I appreciate that, man. But anyway, so that's all I wanted to share with all of you all today. Again, this was a special live. I took time off from work to do this because I believe this was important, and I make no regrets and no apologies for doing that. I'm trusting God with the results. I'm trusting God with what comes after this. I'm not I'm not that kind of person that's afraid to take a stand, and God has people like that. And so, continue to pray for me, pray for those like Dr. Parks and others, frontline doctors and others as well. If you have not also subscribed to Jonathan Otto on Telegram, you need to do that as well too. He releases videos regarding SIB, and it will be very helpful and also advantageous for you and informative for you if you subscribe to his Telegram channel. Also subscribe to my Telegram channel. If you have not done that, you need to do that. Subscribe to my Telegram channel. I'm going to try to change some settings so that way we can interact and converse and have dialogue and discussions as well. How do I spell his name? Jonathan, Jonathan, Otto, Otto. And you can find his information. You can find his information there. You can find it there on Telegram. So anyway, again, I appreciate those of you who support this ministry and support what we do. Also, new video has been released on our Love, Life, and Marriage with the Woods channel. I don't think that's going to be taken down unless they just that petty. We release videos pretty much almost every week. Go there, please. Go there. Subscribe to our Love, Life, and Marriage with the Woods on YouTube. Subscribe to that channel as well. That way you can be informed to be abreast on topics and discussions that we do regarding life, marriage, love, situations, issues that we believe affect the family as a whole. You say, what is what's my Telegram? It's just under my name, Big Yehuda. It's under my name, just SaikoWoods, under my name. Actually, I think it's also BCV Chat. That's the one I just created, BCV Chat, which stands for book, chapter, verse, BCV Chat. So you can also go there and check it out. All right. So anyway, I'm going to end this live today. If I do another one, you'll be notified. You'll be informed of it. But other than that, I appreciate you all. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the encouragement. And until next time, y'all know the drill. Y'all know how we do it. Whatever you do, do all to the glory and honor of God. God bless.